Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Ultimate Treadmill Fat Loss Program. So this isn't a video that I'm just going to give you the settings and you're just going to find success with those settings as if like a certain incline and speed is really going to help you. Although we are certainly going to discuss that. It's going to be like a whole system. There's other things to consider. It's not just simply walking on the treadmill. There's things to consider with what that does to your movement throughout the day and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, I got the whole board right here. So we're going to go through all of these things, and then the settings we are going to discuss right at the end to kind of put it all together, because those are probably, whenever you know everything, it's, they're obviously important, but it kind of depends on what the settings are going to be for you. So let's first go up here. Days per week. How many days per week should you be walking on the treadmill? Ideally, I mean, if you can, it would be like 7. Now there's certain things to consider, which we're going to get into on the considerations. And, we'll just kind of skip over there. So one of the considerations is to build up. You have to build up to this. If you are not used to walking at all, your feet literally might hurt after the first day. Now we're going to discuss also how long you should be walking or how far. But let's say, I'm just picking a time here. Let's say you start with 20 minutes and the next day your feet hurt. You really do need to rest. I hate to say that. I'm not like, I want you moving as much as possible. It is going to help you lose weight. But if you suffer from, plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis, you're not going to be getting very far. So it's literally going to stop your progress. So you need to build up to it. I would pick a time, like if you're literally sedentary and you don't move very much, start with 10 minutes and try to do that. Ideally, I would want you to so pick maximum commitment that you think is realistic. Let's say that's 4 days per week. Ideally, I'd want you to start with something that's 10 minutes for 4 days per week, then 40 minutes on day 1, then you need a week to rest. So pick something. It could be 10 minutes. Give it time. Let the first week be super low. It's okay. You'll find out after 2 or 3 sessions, like, I can definitely do more. Then go ahead and do more. You want to do as much as you can that isn't going to impact your ability to recover. Now, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose, you have to imagine how much weight, and give yourself a little bit of grace, how much weight is being pushed down on your body every single step. It's probably not super comfortable for your feet and for your knees and stuff, and you probably can attest to that if you have a lot of weight to lose. So give yourself grace, give yourself time, build into it. In terms of days per week, ideally, I walk 6 days a week. So, and I mean, I guess I walk 7 days a week. I do cardio 6 days a week. So, as much as possible, but build into it. And if your schedule, let's say you have kids and a full-time job and you're not a personal trainer like me, it might only allow you to walk 4 days a week or something. But, do as much as you can, and I promise you're going to get results especially if you're here, if now you're here, you're going to get results, okay? So if you build up a little bit, you're going to be fine. So that's days per week. So how long? How long should you walk? That could also include, how, I prefer time so much more over distance, because of what we're going to talk about, here in a little bit. It's actually under the settings sticky note. So we're going to talk about that, but I prefer, I'll tell you why in a little bit, but for now, I prefer time over distance. If you're a distance person, that's fine too. If you're like, I want to walk a mile a day, that is totally fine. I just prefer 20 minutes at your settings, and you do that 20 minutes, and then you build that up to 25, and then you build that up to 30. So again, kind of like days per week, you start with something relatively easy, and so let's say 3 days per week is what you're starting with at 10 minutes a day or whatever. You just pick something. It doesn't really matter. You are going to increase that with time no matter what. The worst thing you could do is start with an hour and you find out that you can't do that, and you're recovering for a week, and it kills your motivation, and you start eating bad, and all that cycle, that horrible self-hatred cycle starts. I've been there plenty of times. I know how it feels. I know how it is. I believe that's why I'm good at training people, because whenever I was younger, I struggled with obesity, and it just heavily impacted me. I know how it feels. I know all those feelings and those cycles, those negative cycles. So start with something easy. I promise it's going to be okay. All right, so don't overthink it too much. So let's skip over here to the considerations. I already talked about building up. We already hit up that with both the days per week and how long, but also your feet care. So don't take this lightly. It sounds silly, like taking care of your feet. Kind of sounds like, I don't know, kind of sounds stupid, but it's important, especially if you are heavier. You might have struggled with plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis. You might have struggled with some type of pain, in your feet, maybe neuropathy, anything like that. So get whatever is going to suit you. Get some insoles. That's usually going to be enough for people, some sort of insole, like something that's like $30 on Amazon. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. and, you know, look at the reviews and everything, but something that's going to support your feet, because you're going to be taking more steps than normal. And I would say, from my experience and with my clients and everything and myself, it takes the longest to adjust to your feet to adjust more than, you know, your cardiovascular system and stuff like that. So give your feet time to adjust, build into it. And the building into it process that we were just talking about with days per week and how long, that will help your feet. Now, there is more to this. It isn't just a simple insole thing. If you want to get more advanced, you don't never really have to go past that. But if you use those toe spacers that have been kind of gaining in popularity, I've been using that, and it really seems to set my arch. It's helping my arch to kind of be built up. I remember the first day I used those, we took a family walk. It was probably, I don't know, like 2 miles, 3 miles. It wasn't that long. It wasn't hot or anything. I think it was in the fall. The next day, my feet were so sore. I thought I didn't know if I wanted to keep using these things. And it didn't feel sore. They felt like they were in pain. So I probably shouldn't have walked that long. But now I don't feel it at all. But I do feel that my arch gets kind of, on a long, fast walk, it'll get kind of tired. And I've never noticed that before. It's almost like the spacers, they're not assisting my arch. They're almost making I guess they are assisting it, but they're almost making my arch work. That's how it feels, at least. And I think my feet are a lot stronger. I've had a lot less plantar fasciitis issues due to that. And as you lose weight, that, you know, almost goes away a lot of times. So that could be it as well. But those toe spacers are really nice. And then I also use some type of like ball. It's this, I think if you look it up on Amazon, like foot massage ball, you'll find a ball with like a bunch of spikes. And there's certain like tube looking things that almost look like a, you know, toilet paper roll or something with like ridges on them. And it's supposed to, you know, it matches the pressure points of your feet. I don't think you have to get anything fancy, just something to press into that fascia. So I just do that every night for like 5 minutes total. So like 2 minutes-ish, 2.5 minutes per foot. So, you know, taking care of your feet. I know that's probably not a sexy topic. Most people probably left the video by now, but that is very important. I would feel bad if I didn't bring that up. So holding is what it says there. Holding on is what it's supposed to say. Holding on to the I have an awesome free resource for you that is called the 30-Day Shape Up Challenge. It's 30 days of 4 habits that I run my clients through that is going to help you get a great start to your fat loss journey. And there's a bonus 5th habit in case you fall off the wagon at all. All my clients love it, and it's free. So just scan this QR code here or click the link in the description, and I'll send that straight to your email. Handrails. That is another consideration. So you will see people at the gym. I don't mean any negativity by this. You know, I'm not trying to judge people or anything. I'm just saying I'm at the gym a lot. I'm a personal trainer, and I see it. And people will crank up the incline, and they will hold on to that treadmill for dear life. They'll just be gripping on with everything they got. It certainly feels hard on your forearms because it's like you're holding on to the side of a cliff. But it certainly isn't helping you burn calories. And the proof of that, if you don't believe me here, try to walk at, you know, a 6% incline and hold on to the handrails. And then completely let go. And if that's not hard, you know, try 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever. You'll find that I can't keep up anymore. I need to hold on. So obviously it's making something easier. And what it's doing is essentially you are matching the incline of the treadmill. So you're no longer walking at an incline. You're not carrying yourself uphill, but you are holding on for dear life. So it certainly is like harder, but it's in some muscles that aren't going to make much of a difference. It's your forearms and hands. You're not going to burn a lot of calories doing that. So don't hold on to the handrails. Now, if you need to hold on for balance, totally understandable. I'm not saying that you have to be scared while on this thing. But don't hold and lean. No, don't hold them or pull on them, I should say. You can hold them for balance. Hover your hands or literally set them on the rails, but set them on. Don't grab. If you feel like you're squeezing, then you're probably holding. You shouldn't need to squeeze. Gently hold onto the handrails if you need. So I'm telling you, that will be a game changer. If you've always held onto the handrails, you will find that you are going to need to lower that incline because you are you're working so much harder. And that's a good thing. That means you're going to be burning more calories. And I promise it's not like you lowering the incline is going to somehow magically lower the calories that you have been burning. The machine will say that you're burning less calories, but you shouldn't be trusting those anyway. And I should have put that on the sheet. Everything the treadmill says about calorie burn, throw that out the window. Those things, it's shocking how inaccurate they are. Maybe it's because, you know, it's trying to give estimations for the general population, but even whenever you put in your weight and your height and everything, in your age and your sex, it's just so far off. I'm wondering if almost like, I don't know, a long-term marketing commitment from the company might be like, if we say they burn some additional calories, they'll like our product more, they'll use it more, they'll like it more, they'll perhaps buy one for their home, or, you know, it'll be more popular and gyms will get them. I don't know. It just does so far off, it's ridiculous. So usually you're burning like half the calories those machines say. So don't even look at that. Okay, so no holding on to the handrails. And then entertainment. So with how I train my clients, they do a lot of cardio, as much as can fit in their schedule. And we also do lifting, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So I'm not just having my clients eat bird food and do a bunch of cardio, so don't worry. But you got to entertain yourself somehow. Especially if you're going to be on the treadmill this much. If you're going to be on the treadmill 30 minutes, 6 days a week, that's a lot. I use this as a time not to be entertained, because I almost start to feel bad. Like, I know I'm getting exercise, but I almost start to feel like this time could be used so much more wisely. So I listen to podcasts or ebooks or my Bible app or whatever. If it's the Bible, I listen on normal speed, but if it's everything else, I listen on double speed or at least 1.5 times speed, so I can learn and I can get better at personal training. I'm usually listening to, educational videos about, the body and how metabolism works and all that. So I use that as a time to better myself. So if you have a book that you could listen to for work, I know like a job I used to have a long time ago had like a book reading program. Every book you read, they would pay you like $5 or something like that, or I don't know, maybe it's $40 at the end of the month. I can't remember. I think that was it. It was a max of $40 at the end of the month. Whatever. Something to better yourself. It could also be fiction. Use it as a time to work on your mental health. There's books that are obviously nonfiction that help you on your mental health. There's the Bible app, like I listen to. There is Harry Potter. If escaping this world for a while helps you, then man, you're gonna double up. You're gonna be getting physically fit and mentally more healthy due to just having some time off, if you will, to not think about life. So use entertainment time as a way of maybe bettering yourself, and think of it that way, and it'll actually encourage you a lot of times to get on the treadmill. Also, if you're a big sports fan, if you can time them up, because I only watch my sports live. I almost never record them, but if you record, that works too. But if you can time it up for the games that you watch, saying I'm going to walk as long as this game is on and watch the game, that's good too. Obviously, that'll be getting you a lot of steps. Considering, or good segue to steps. So first, I get a lot of questions like, should I count my steps from my cardio? I do. As long as you're consistent, it's fine. So I try to get 10,000 steps a day, but on days that I do treadmill stuff, I might get 14 or 16,000. So that's kind of like my new normal. And I count it because I want to know the total, and it makes me feel better. Who cares? As long as you're consistent. If some days you count your steps on the treadmill and other days you put your phone down to watch it and you don't, then that'll kind of skew it. So I would try to, I just have these cheap, this step tracker here. See, I already have I don't know if that'll come through. 12,000, what does that say? 174 steps. So yeah, I just clip that onto my pocket all day. And it's 3:38 p.m. So I'll probably end up with like 14, 16,000 steps a day. And, I have some clients a little bit later. And anyway, so count the steps on your treadmill. I like it, or just don't, and just consistently don't. Doesn't matter. Outside of the treadmill, you want a step goal. So what the biggest kind of roadblock can be to walking on a treadmill program for weight loss is, let's say as your fitness improves and as you get more and more fit, and as you start walking more, your movement outside of exercise, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which I count as steps. I've heard some trainers don't, and I think that's silly. So your steps will drop a lot of times. So let's say that normally right now you get 5,000 steps and you start exercising, and now, had you been tracking it, you get 3,000 steps, and that includes the treadmill. So you're getting 2,000 of your steps on the treadmill or something, and then you're just like not moving the rest of the day because you're tired. That will actually impact, instead of you burning 500 calories or, something more realistic, instead of you burning like 300 calories on the treadmill, now you're burning 300 calories on the treadmill still, but you're burning 200 calories less throughout the day. So now you're only burning an additional 100 calories. That is a lot of times the reason a person will start exercising and be like, I'm not losing any weight. It's because they're making up for it somewhere else, usually in the form of eating a little bit more, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and moving a little bit less. So keep track of your steps. I think it's very important, especially when you're already when your exercise is walking. You want to make sure you don't accidentally walk less outside of exercise. So keep track of your steps and make sure that stays consistent. And as your treadmill programs get, let's say now you're doing 6 days a week for 30 minutes instead of 15 minutes, you're going to have to account for that. So don't, if you used to get 8,000 steps and now you're getting 9,000, now you got to keep it at 9,000. So that brings us to, there's one last thing. So the daily weight. I think it is very important to track your weight every single day. Let me explain daily. It doesn't have to be every day, but let me explain that a little bit. But first, why is it so important to track your weight? So obviously, as you do this treadmill program, the hope usually, sorry, there's like a piece of hair on there. The hope usually is that you're going to lose weight. So if you're not tracking your weight, you can't make adjustments. If you're walking 30 minutes every single day or 30 minutes 4 times a week, whatever, pick something, and it's not going well, then you can make adjustments if you know that. Or if it's going really good, then you can make adjustments if you know that. Or if it's going too well, which I know most people are like, it won't go too well, trust me. But if you're losing 4 or 5 pounds a week and you don't have like a significant amount of body fat to lose, like I'm talking morbidly obese, you shouldn't be losing 5 pounds a week. You're probably cutting into your muscle, and that's going to hurt you long term. So we need to be able to make adjustments. Daily weight is very important. I know it's kind of on a side note to the treadmill, but it's very important. If all you do is a treadmill and you're not tracking your progress, it's going to really be hard. But why daily? So here's how I explain it to my clients. The more weigh-ins we have, weigh-ins are just data points. They're always false. They're either false or false low, but they're always false, almost always. Even if you lose 3 pounds that day, I can't tell you how many times on a Facebook post I see someone said, I lost 3 pounds and I just started exercising 2 days ago. It's like, you didn't lose 3 pounds. It's probably water weight from the additional exercise. Glycogen leaving your muscles is normally in the muscles. So they're always false high and false low. I like to tell my clients, every time you step on the scale, tell yourself it's lying, even if it's low. And they, for some reason, they always laugh, like I'm telling a joke, but I'm serious. It's lying. So whether it is low or whether it is high, it is false. What is true though is the pattern of weigh-ins. It is, do you see it going up? Do you see it going down? Do you see it staying flat? And we can get a more accurate pattern and a very easy to recognize pattern if we have lots of weigh-ins. If we only have like 3 weigh-ins in a month, it's hard to tell what really happened that month unless it's super obvious. And a lot of times, a person's weigh-in, I should draw this. A person's, I'm probably not going to be able to on there. I'll probably do it on my phone, right? A lot of times a person's weight will be hard to see what is going on. So you might, step on the scale and be like, I'm not losing any weight and this feels horrible. And if you were to track that every day, you would see, oh, you know what? There actually is slow weight loss. Now I'm going to try to draw this on my phone. I'm not sure if this is going to work at all, but we will see. So a lot of times a person's weight, there we go, is going to be something like this, where I hope that's right side for you, because right now it's going backwards, but where, there will be spikes up and down, up and down, up and down. If they were to take their weight here and here, they would think not much was going on. Oh, I was barely losing weight, but because they took it every day, you can see a pattern of going down. Now they might have given up right here because they thought nothing was going on. And so none of this would have even occurred because they gave up. So you can see how, and that's very common. I'm not like just making that up to prove my point and it's not real. That happens all the time with my clients. So up and down, up and down. And it also could be the other way where you think you're losing weight because you happen to take your weight on 2 Wednesdays, once a week or once every 2 weeks, maybe, once a month, whatever. And you happen to be low on the second weigh-in. You think, oh, everything's going great. Remember, it's always false. It's always a lie. It's a lie high or a lie low. What isn't lying to you is the pattern. So take your weight every day. That is what I recommend. Now, if you're not ready for that and you are kind of hesitant, I understand. I get it. I'm not going to make you take your weight every single day. And obviously, some guy on YouTube is going to be able to control you anyway. But I'm just saying I wouldn't encourage that if you dread the scale. Build into it. Maybe take it once a week. And then it's going to take a little longer to establish a pattern, but trust the system and let the pattern be established. Don't give up if something seems high one day because it could just be a false weigh-in. And then I think as you step on the scale, you kind of start internally disengaging from that number because you see, hey, it goes up, it goes down. It doesn't matter. It's not who I am. I've seen this go up and go down 1,000 times. So the more that you see it, the more that you will be able to disengage from that just being like who you are or reflecting on your importance. And it'll be more about it just being a number. And then maybe you can step on twice a week or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then every day. So build into it. Okay, so there's 2 things here. We're going to go over the settings, and then this is all for nothing unless you look at what's under. That sticky note. Not really, obviously, but kind of. They are super important. So always improve and VO2 max and zone 2. So there's kind of 2 approaches to doing your settings. So here's how I used to really like it, and they kind of both end up being the same thing, but I used to tell my clients to always be improving on their settings. So let's say I would have them pick, I do have them pick, let's say 3 days a week, 40 minutes a day at a 3 speed and a 3 incline. And they do that. And I tell them, okay, now whenever you feel ready, whenever you feel like a 3 incline is getting a little easy, go up to a 3.5, and then a 4, and then a 4.5. If you don't improve and all you do is let your fitness improve, but you're at the same settings, you're actually going to be burning less calories with time. As you get more fit, you will be able to burn more calories, but unless you use your extra fitness to increase the incline or increase the speed or increase the days per week or whatever, if you just stick to the same schedule, same settings all the time, you'll actually be burning less calories with time. Yes, your metabolism, a little bit of adaptation occurs, but it's mainly in the form of you are now more fit and now it's easier for you. The example I always use is I don't know why, he's one of my favorite athletes, doping or not, Lance Armstrong. Let's say myself and Lance Armstrong are riding a bike and I'm keeping up with him. So at that time, Lance Armstrong, he's over here, he is probably just moseying along. Me, I'm working my butt off. I'm working 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, just keep up with him, right? Because he's so much more fit. So I'm, at that moment, probably burning more calories, way more calories, than Lance Armstrong. If he decides he's inspired by my hard work and he takes off, I'm never going to be able to catch up to him because he is now working 8 or 9 out of 10. I was already working 8 or 9 out of 10, so I physically don't have the ability to catch up to him even if I wanted to. But now he's working just as hard as me. He's covering a lot more ground, meaning he's burning way more calories. I'm talking, it could go from me burning like 500 an hour, and that would be a brutal hour, to him burning 1,000 an hour, 1,200, 1,300 an hour. So now you have the ability to burn more calories. So you want to use your improved fitness as this gets better to increase the settings. Usually that is going to be in the form of incline. But if you started at like a 1.7, because you're basically sedentary and you're working on this, that's okay. 1.7 speed, sorry. Then make that a 1.8 speed, 1.9 speed, 2 speed. Around 3, 3.2, 3.3, if you enjoy walking fast, maybe it's as high as 4. But around where you start to feel like, hey, I'm kind of walking kind of fast, that's whenever I really start to work on incline. Now you could start at a flat incline and then go to 0.5 and then go to 1 and then go to 1.5% and 2% and 3% and so on. And eventually, to kind of go back to the Lance Armstrong sort of analogy, imagine a year later, you're walking the same days per week, the same amount of time. Let's say it's 3 days a week, 30 minutes each session, 3 miles an hour. So a bunch of threes, 3 days per week, 30 minutes per session, 3 miles an hour. But instead of a 3% incline, now you're on a 12% incline. You're working significantly harder in the same time. So yes, you're doing more in terms of how difficult it is, but you haven't had to give any more in terms of schedule. You haven't had to give any more in terms of time or days per week. Now imagine coupling that with now I do 4 days a week and now I do an hour a time. Now you're getting so much more done in the same week. Now, yes, you're having to give up additional time, but it's just incredible what always improving will give you. So always keep that in mind. I would say it takes about a month or 2 at first to be able to bring it up to another percent. And I should also explain, I try to pick the settings in this example, and I'm going to explain the VO2 max and zone 2 thing in a second, because that's getting more popular, and I think I agree more with that now. But this way works just as well, and they all both end up, like I said earlier, kind of being the same thing. But it's always, I want you to try and keep the same incline throughout the 30 minutes. So let's say, or 40 minutes or 20 minutes. So let's say you pick 20 minutes and you do 3% incline. By the end, you're like, wow, that was pretty tough. But it starts to not be so tough. Then you do 3.5% incline. Try to keep that the whole time. Let's say you start with 3.5% incline. You can only make 10 minutes in. That's okay. Know that at the 10-minute mark is whenever you drop that down. Let's say you went to 4%. Now you have to drop down to 3%. And maybe you try to make it to 10.5 and then 11. Just always improving. And then eventually you'll be able to do all 20 minutes with 3.5% incline. We could, more examples. Let's say you start to get up to 10% incline for 20 minutes. Now you might want to do, maybe you drop that back to 7% incline because the incline's getting kind of ridiculous, starting to hurt your ankles, something like that. So now you drop it to 7% incline and you do it for 30 minutes and then 35 minutes and then 40 minutes. So it's just always improving, always doing more, up to a certain point, because it could be ridiculous if you're trying to walk at 5.5 miles an hour, you may as well just run. In fact, I don't even know if that would be possible for me to walk that fast. So anyways, so as long as it makes sense, always be doing more. So VO2 max, sorry if that made a sound, VO2 max and zone 2. So VO2 max training should be done like 20%. Now, this is like after you've lost a significant amount of weight. VO2 max is like working really hard. You can think of it as working really hard. And I'm not going to get into that so much here. I'm going to talk more about the zone 2 because that's going to be more up this video's alley. But VO2 max should be done whenever you're like, hey, now I want to really work on my heart health. I've lost a bunch of fat. Now my heart's healthy because of the lack of fat, but I want to actually work on the heart's ability to work and to be healthier and to reduce my risk of heart disease and stroke and heart attack and all that. VO2 max should be done about 20% of the total. So I just add up the total minutes that I do per week, which for me, you know what? I don't even know what it is. So it's, I would say I average out like 45 minutes per session. Some of them are like 60, but 6 days a week. So it's 270 minutes. So 54 minutes would be zone 2, or sorry, not zone 2, VO2 max. So, yeah, so that's VO2 max. I'm not going to really discuss that here, but just know that that is something you should be looking forward to in the future. Now, zone 2 training. Zone 2 is going to be anything that the best way by far, it's measured off of like lactate levels in your blood, and there's actually devices that you can take your blood at the end of a thing, but don't worry about all that. It's the talk test is by far the best way of doing it. I kind of whisper to myself while I'm on the treadmill in a public setting to kind of see like, could I hold a phone conversation? Would it be something that's a little difficult for me to hold? Well, I should say that is a little bit unpleasant for the other person on the other end of the line to hear, but not difficult for me to hold. So it's just, having to take a few between, and it would be something a little more like this. I'm sorry you had to hear that, but it's having to breathe a little bit between, but we can still converse. Now, if you're really having to huff and puff and you're like, I couldn't even hold a phone conversation, you're probably closer to a VO2 max, or you're at least above zone 2, you're into zone 3, or possibly zone 4. So you want to be able to talk. It's relatively easy. The reason this is so important is because the reason zone 2 and not zone 3 or zone 4. Zone 3, 4, 5, depending on how different places define it, there will be different number of zones. They will burn a lot more calories per minute. But you can only keep them up for like 20 minutes, tops. A good zone 2 workout will be 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off for like 30 minutes to an hour. So even if you did 30-minute, 4 minutes on, 32 minutes, 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, that'd be 8 rounds back and forth. That's only 16 minutes of intense exercise. So it's not very much. Now it's good for your heart and lungs and stuff, but it's not going to burn a lot of calories. Walking for 45 minutes is going to burn a lot more calories at a zone 2 pace than working hard for 15 minutes. And then let's say you could even work hard for 30 minutes or whatever, then good luck doing that the next day and the next day and the next day. You will always, tortoise in the hare, you will always win by going at a zone 2 pace. So that is how I would do it. Now, that kind of goes back into the always improve thing, and how I said they end up at the same place with your settings is, let's say you pick zone 2 and I usually fall somewhere in the settings, like I just fall back to settings anyway. So my zone 2 setting is 3.5 or 6 speed and like a 4 or 5% incline. And that's my zone 2. It's not super hard. And you might, I want to encourage you, you might be like 4 or 5% incline at 3. I couldn't even do that. That would kill me. Don't worry, wherever you're at, doesn't matter. So that's kind of my settings. Now I might find that day that that's awfully hard and I have to lower it. And I might find that day that it's awfully easy and I have to increase it, but I just use the talk test, and most of the time I fall somewhere around there. And you'll find with time that now you'll be at 7% or 8% or 9% incline. And some days you'll be at 7%, some days you'll be at 9%, but both of them are higher than it used to be at 3% or 4% or whatever, So that's kind of always improving. As you get more fit, you'll find that the talk test is achieved, or like where it starts to get just barely difficult to hold a phone conversation, or not even difficult, but it's right before it gets difficult to hold a phone conversation, that gets higher. The settings get higher and higher and higher for that. So that's kind of, again, in the same vein as always improving. So let's look at this one. Hopefully I can read this. So, all right, all for nothing, meaning like all of this means nothing if you don't get your calories, protein, and your muscle, and that's kind of like lifting. I should have just wrote lifting there. If you don't get those right. So calories, protein, and lifting. This comes best, I think, in the form of food logging. Now, you don't have to food log at first, or maybe you do food log at first. You don't have to stick with it or whatever. Maybe you have a meal plan, whatever. You need some way of controlling your portions. You don't want, and not just controlling your portions, but controlling, what you're eating. So, if you start eating more avocados, then you might take in, as healthy as it is, you might take in more calories because you're eating something so high in calorie. So you need a way of not letting the exercise decrease your steps. I was talking about keeping track of your steps. You need it earlier. I was talking about that. So you don't accidentally decrease your steps. You also don't want to accidentally eat more. Now, you're probably going to eat a little bit more, and that's okay. But if you burn 500 calories on the treadmill, you don't want to eat 400 of it, or even 600 of it, So you want to keep track of your calories. And I know that that isn't what you came here to hear. You came here for settings on how to help you lose weight. But I promise, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. We don't live in a fantasy land. If you eat more calories than you are expending on the treadmill, it's healthy for your heart. Don't get me wrong. It's good. Please do that. But you're not going to lose body fat because you've made up for the calories. So keeping track of your calories is really going to help you. For me, that's food logging. I'm going to do a deep dive on food logging here soon on the channel. I have other things on my channel about food logging, but I've gotten a lot better at it. That was like 5-6 years ago. So I can if you guys want it, this video, let's say it does happen to take off or something, please leave a comment and let me know, hey, I've watched this far and I would really like that video on food logging. And I'll give you a full out deep dive. It'd probably end up being an hour long or more on how I really feel like I have mastered the art of food logging, like exact calories. I'm not saying that I know my exact calories, but as close as a person can, I know the calories and the protein, the carbs and the fats that I'm taking in. It's not as hard as you think. So either way, you need a way of keeping track of your calories, keeping track of your protein. And if that's in hand size, I'm going to have a hand-sized portion of carbs and a fist-sized portion of low-fat dairy and a palm-sized portion of meat at every meal or whatever. I don't care how you do it. You need some way of making sure you're not accidentally eating more. Then you need to make sure that your protein is good. Now, again, the best way to accomplish this, if you're like, I don't want a food log, Aaron, then one of the best ways to accomplish this is just commit to food logging for 2 weeks. 2 perfect weeks. So let's say it takes you a week of kind of figuring out the app and figuring out how to do it, and you forgot one day and all that. Perfect weeks of food logging will give you an idea of how much you eat and making sure you don't accidentally eat more. And you could do that every once in a while or whatever. I don't think that's the best solution, but it is possible. But you also need to make sure your protein is good because, and we've all been here. I've done this myself, lost a bunch of weight. How many times have you heard that someone has lost a bunch of weight? Usually it's 60 pounds or more, and they gain it all back, plus more. A lot of times that is because they lost, look into their story, they lost that weight in 3 months. They lost 60 pounds in 3 months, which isn't, I guess it's not crazy. Let's say they lost, that's still fast, but let's say they lost 60 pounds in 2 months. And a lot of that was muscle. And now their metabolism's a little bit slower, and now they're weaker, and now they're moving less, and now they're lethargic, and now their hormones are all off, and all that stuff. And I don't like to rush to blame hormones, but still, everything's off. So we got to spare your muscle mass, and that is a great segue into lifting. You need to be lifting weights too. So if you can only commit 3 days per week to exercise, I would encourage you to try to find a fourth. But if you can only commit 3, then I would do 2 days of cardio and 1 day of lifting. Ideally, you would maybe do lifting on all 3 days and then cardio after. So you got to work it into your schedule, but don't be defeated if you're like, man, I can only do 3 days, Aaron, or let's say 2. If you can only do 1, you got to find more time. But let's say you legitimately can only do 2 days per week. That is going to benefit you massively. Okay, 1 day of lifting, total body program, 1 day of cardio, or better yet, total body program, 2 days a week, and cardio after 2 days a week, and then make sure you're getting enough steps throughout the rest of the week. That would be a great place to start. So you got to make sure to keep your muscle mass whenever you're lifting and you're pushing yourself. And, intensity is a whole different conversation, but you have to be working out hard, not stupidly. You don't want to go to the point of injuring yourself, or all this is, again, for nothing. But you want to be pushing hard. And maybe I'll do a weightlifting for weight loss video as well, if you guys are interested in that. So please let me know if there's anything that, you might want to hear that could expand upon this. But you need to be lifting in order to keep your muscle. So that's kind of the summary of the video is intensity. Be working harder as you get more fit. Make sure to be lifting and lift with intensity, and keep track of your calories, keep track of your steps, and it'll kind of all fall into place.